it was in Winnipeg too that Dave Hansen pulled off Bobby Hull's hairpiece there. Bobby wasn't wearing a helmet at the time, and Dave grabbed his hair, and Bobby pulled away. And the hairpiece, Dave's standing there with the hairpiece in his hand, and he starts laughing. And then Bobby goes and puts a helmet on, and it was Dave got 5 minutes for hair pulling.
That was John Garrett, former NHL goaltender and current NHL analyst on Sportsnet. He's our main guest on Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. I'm your host, Jamie Thomas. We'll also hear from the President of Pride Winnipeg. Later in the show is Barry Karlenzig about the recent Pride Night that was held here at Canada Life Center last Friday. At the time we are taping this podcast, the Winnipeg Jets are bound to Florida. They will play 3 games this week, all of them on the road. Wednesday in Tampa Bay, Friday against the Florida Panthers, and they will wrap up the road trip Sunday against the Nashville Predators, another Central Division battle. And how about that homestand? 3 straight wins, a fantastic performance. They go 4-1 over the 5-game homestand. They got victories over New Jersey, Buffalo, and Arizona to wrap it up. Connor Hellebuck stealing the show Friday against the Buffalo Sabres. A huge save on Jordan Greenway to keep the game 3-2. He was outstanding. He had 3 breakaway saves as well. And then Saturday, the defense locked things down. Barely any scoring opportunities over the final 30 minutes of the hockey game as they beat Arizona 5-2 to wrap things up. An impressive homestand, to say the least, and associate coach Scott Arniel agrees.
You know, how we finished it off, not giving up. I think we gave up 3 shots last 30 minutes of game, no scoring chances. It's a pretty good sign of just kind of how we've been playing, kind of without the puck, and that's probably been the biggest sort of message for the last 5 games, that, you know, we're making it hard for the opposition to get offense, and it's going to be real important going out on the road now.
It was also a heck of a homestand for Kyle Connor. As of Monday morning, he is all alone on top of the NHL in scoring with 14 goals. He scored the game winner on Saturday night on a beautiful feed from Mark Scheifele. His 5th game-winning goal of the season. He has 9 goals in the month of November. You just want the month to keep rolling and rolling. And Mark Scheifele said it best after the game on Saturday. Kyle Connor has simply been amazing.
You know, he's been awesome all season. I'm lucky to be on his line, that's for sure. Obviously, had an amazing shot, and it's been really fun to play with him, and just got to keep going.
Just, you know, I'm trying to be as lethal as I can, I guess, in the offensive zone. You know, trying to have that attack mindset, like you kind of alluded to. You know, being a little bit more versatile as well, and just trying to score in as many different ways as I can. You know, I think we're playing well offensively as a unit as well. You know, our Ds are really getting involved once we hem them in the D zone, and you know, if you look at our last couple of goals too off the rush, we do a really good job of transitioning in our Ds. They throw it up really quick, and you know, as a forward and you know, a guy with a lot of speed, I love that. So I try to get them changing indecisive on their gap and as a D man, and you know, that's kind of what you saw on my goal there. You just threw it up real quick, and you know, they were sagging, and Shai found me cross ice in a little bit of space.
Kyle Connor doing a great job giving credit to how well the defense is playing right now. The forwards are coming back to help things out. And, of course, defense leading into offense has been a real key for the Winnipeg Jets, especially at 5-on-5. It feels like forever ago, but last Tuesday, officially a week ago as this pod is released, that we saw Nikolai Ehlers drop the gloves with Brendan Smith of the New Jersey Devils. The 7th fight the Danish forward has had in his National Hockey League career. Ehlers coming to the defense of his line mate Vladislav Nemestikov, who was put into the boards hard by Brendan Smith. So Josh Morrissey said after the game that Nikolai Ehlers, he had felt, had never fought anyone in his weight class. So that got us to thinking. We did some research, and here is the Nikolai Ehlers fight card. 7 fights. Brendan Smith. So keep in mind, Nikolai Ehlers not really in this weight class. Brendan Smith, 6'2", 200. Braden Shen of the St. Louis Blues, that was last season. It was Shen is 6'1", 199. Corey Perry, when he was with the Montreal Canadiens, 6'3", 208. Brad Marchand, the closest of the bunch to Nikolai Ehlers' weight class. He's 5'9", 176. Ryan Getzlaf, the biggest of the bunch from the Anaheim Ducks before he retired, 6'4", 220. Colton Sissons, when he was with Nashville, 6'1", 200. And Nikolai Ehlers' first professional National Hockey League fight came in February of 2016 when he fought Tyson Barrie of then the Colorado Avalanche, who was 5'11", 197. So Josh Morrissey accurate in his assessment of none of Nikolai Ehlers' fights coming in his weight class. Which brings us to the play of the week. Kyle Connor had some beautiful goals, but we've had him in there before. Vladislav Nemestikov stealing the show, and he'll be our play of the week with his bank job against the Arizona Coyotes.
Morrissey skating up to center ice from the red line. He flips it in. Ramelka was waiting for it. He was out of the net. It's in the net! Fortuitous bounce this time for Nemesnikov.
You know, Ryan, we talked about this a little earlier. Lamelka with the puck touches. He comes out of the net here, but this puck doesn't have the speed to get by the trapezoid. And when that happens, he gets caught in no man's land. Now it's a simple clearing to the front of the net off the skate of Krause.
I think many a Winnipeg Jet fan will recognize John Garrett, especially from the 1.0 days, because John Garrett was a color analyst on Hockey Night in Canada and also on CKY broadcasts back in the day in the 80s and 90s. John Garrett will share some stories about Don Whitman and, of course, the current NHL version of the Winnipeg Jets up next here on Ground Control.
Hi, I'm Kyle Connor.
What a goal by Kyle Connor.
This is the Ground Control Podcast.
Pleased to be joined by a good friend of mine, John Garrett, in Tampa to call the next Jets game. First off, how are you enjoying doing less this year as in years past?
Well, I'm not missing it as much as I thought I would. I did, as you know, all the Canuck games for a long time. And they started the season off. They played one home game, and then they went on a 5-game trip. And it was start in Edmonton and then a couple of days off, and then go to Philadelphia and a couple of days off, and then go to Florida, a couple of days off, and then go to Nashville. And it ended up being a 13-day trip, which is unusual for a 5-game. Usually you play it back-to-back someplace. They didn't. And that's a long time away. You get to the point where you like to be on the road for a little while, but not for 13 days. And I'm at that age where the nightlife in Nashville, I can't do it night after night after night. Broadway, here we go. Yeah, it's not New York Broadway, it's Nashville Broadway.
Completely different.
And you know me, Jamie, that Nashville Broadway is worse than New York Broadway for me.
Oh, way worse, way worse.
Yeah.
You are in Tampa right now to call the next Winnipeg Jets game. Thoughts on what you've seen from the Jets early on this season, John?
Oh, I like them because they're balanced. And you look around the league and there's teams that have, one really good line, or like even Tampa. I was watching Tampa last night against Boston, and the Kucherov line and Stamkos and those guys. And they've got contributions from a guy, Austin Watson scored a goal last night. And that's something that the Jets have probably the best third line in the league, in my opinion. Adam Lowry and Niederreiter and those guys. And I think that's the difference between the Jets this year is their balance. And Connor Hellebuyck got off to a rough start this year. I don't think anybody would deny that, but he's back to playing. And in my opinion, he's top 3 in the league, if not the best goalie in the league, the most consistent goalie in the league. And he's about the only goalie in the league, in my opinion, that can play 65, 70 games.
Yeah.
Most of the other guys now, most of the number one guys now, they're looking at, 55. Let's keep him at 55 and save him for the playoffs. And I don't think Hellebuyck needs that. I think he thrives on the work, and I think he's the kind of guy that can play the most games and play better than anybody else.
Is it a good thing for Scott Arniel? Gabe Vilardi skated with the team yesterday. He's getting closer to return. Obviously, now the headache becomes, how do you fit a top 6 forward back into your forward group where all 3 lines are going as well as they are right now?
You just work it. You can spot them. Like you really can. Like you can spot them. And you know what? It's like there's always injuries.
Yeah.
Every game they're taking a chance that somebody can get hurt. And Vilardi got hurt, and now he's coming back. And I think you spot him. And when the team's playing well, obviously you don't shift it around then. But all you have to do lose one game, and then there's your excuse. Okay, you just step aside. Yeah. Who was the worst that time? Yeah. Okay. One loss, and that's all it takes.
Listen, you know Rick Bowness well. How do you think he's handling having to watch games from home? I know it's a good reason to be with Judy and everything like that, but how do you think he's handling that right now?
I'm sure he's antsy. He texts me during games. I've done a couple of Winnipeg games. He's texting me during the game. I did a Montreal-Boston game a couple of weeks ago, and during the game, he had just happened to flick it on, and he goes, "Well, I can't retire as long as you're still working." During the game. And it's got to be really tough. I've known Rick and Judy for a long, long time. I played against him. I never played with him. But he coached in Vancouver for so long. I got to know him really well. And Jamie, you know what it's like in the broadcast business and in the professional hockey player business to be with the same wife for 50 years. It's crazy. It just doesn't happen. There's so many things. It's such a social position in broadcasting and in hockey, and the marriages usually don't last. All my old teammates, oh yeah, you go to a function and this is my wife, and whoa, okay, that's not the same one I stayed with last time. And it's a lot. And now at my age, they goes, oh, is that your? Oh no, that's my wife. Oh, I was thinking that might be your daughter. Oh.
So knowing Judy as well as you do you think she's ready for Rick to get back out on the road?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But I'm sure Rick is, something like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You've been away so long. Your wife has done so much for your career and sacrificed so much that you want to be protective. And I'm sure Rick is thinking, well, okay, as long as the team's playing well and as long as things are going well, I'm sure he's in touch with Scott every day.
Yeah.
Why you just stay as long as you can and be as helpful as you can for as long as you can. And I think Rick will wait probably until the new year, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you've been around the game a long time. There are discussions about overtime again. What would you do to make it better, or would you even tinker with anything at all?
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing it go to 10 minutes.
Right.
But I don't want to go back to ties.
No.
I played in the era when games ended up in ties. And so the teams with the last 10 minutes of the game, we're both going to get a point out of this. Let's play for the tie. And I think now some of the teams but 3-on-3, it's hard. And you watch the overtime goals from last night and a couple of nights ago, and the Hagel goal last night, the Boston game that I was watching. And the Jets were here. The Jets came early, naturally, a long Eastern trip. Well, not a long trip. What a trip. Is this a rookie dinner trip? This would be a rookie dinner trip in my playing days. You're in Tampa, day off, Florida, day off, Nashville.
I know.
So there's in between there's got to be a rookie dinner something. But anyway, getting back to the overtime thing.
Yeah.
It's coaches are so good, and they gear, and you watch the 3-on-3, and the guys get back almost like they're killing a 5-on-3, and then wait for the chance. But with so much open ice, there's a long pass someplace, and the guy's got to break one.
Yes.
And but the 5-minute overtime, and this is, people say, well, it goes to a shootout, and then it's a skills competition. But in the 5-minute overtime, it's 6 guys usually. They just rotate 6 guys. So it's not really a team victory. It's the top 6 guys, and the other guys don't. But if you played a 10-minute overtime, then you'd see some of the third, fourth line guys get some ice time. But how many guys get ice time in a 5-minute overtime that aren't in the top 6 or your top 2 defensemen? None. So you might as well, if they had that, okay, we're going to have a 10-minute overtime. Okay, you play your top 6 to start, but then you have to plan, okay, what if it goes? What if it goes 6-7 minutes? These guys are going to be dead tired. They're tired from the game anyway. They play more ice than anybody else during the regular game. And I think you'd see, okay, we're going to play a 10-minute overtime, and then you'd get some of the third, fourth line guys getting some ice time.
Sounds good to me. Listen, you called Jets games here back in the 80s and early 90s on CKY and CKND. What stands out during those days? It was a different time, of course.
It was a different time. Well, playing at the Polo Park Arena all those years with the Fighting Saints and the Winnipeg Jets, and it was almost like an Original Six kind of atmosphere. Small, cozy, great fans, absolutely great fans. And the guys who I got to call the games with were real characters. You look at Don Whitman was the first play-by-play guy I worked with. I'm working on Wednesday, and you know me, I'm all over the place here. I'm working on Wednesday with
Yeah.
John Bartlett. And guess what? Guess how many play-by-play guys I've worked with? This will be, and I never worked with John Bartlett before until Wednesday coming up.
Let's go 35.
Keep going.
No way. Okay,
John
so
Bartlett will be play-by-play guy number 41.
oh my
But
gosh.
Don Whitman was the first play-by-play guy I worked with. And these guys all grew up doing radio. They were play-by-play radio guys. And Don Whitman was one of the best guys that I worked with, who was a radio guy, Kurt Kielbach, people like that, who realized that on television, because people are watching, you don't have to go puck to puck, pass to pass. It was a lull in the play. It plays at center ice. And then the analyst, who is usually a former player, he gets to talk and enhance the game a little bit. And Whit was so good at that. And such a nice man and a great character, and his calls and track and field and football and all the things that he did. He was just an amazing guy. And, people, cancer is such an awful disease. And he got his. He played an awful lot of golf and never wore a hat.
Yeah.
And it started with a melanoma on his ear, and then it got him.
I asked Joe Pascucci about you, Cheech, and he brought up that the Scooch.
There you go.
He
Mr.
brought up
Positivity, Joe Pascucci. I remember working with Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to call Rod Black. The crew was Whit, Pascucci, and Rod Black. It was just and those were good times. It was. You'd have that little room down by the dressing room at the Polo Park. I'm sure you've been there. And
yes.
That was the studio, that little dark, dungeony sort of thing, and Joe would be in there.
So on a positive note, Joe brought up you shut out the Jets in both the WHA and the NHL, and your only NHL shutout was against the Winnipeg Jets. Do you remember that night?
Yes, I do. And that's a trivia question for you, Jamie. I know you like trivia questions.
I love it.
Goaltender who has played the most NHL games with only one shutout. You're talking to him right now.
John Garrett. That's exactly why we brought you on today for some trivia.
Well, I remember, and it stuck in my mind because my good friend Barry Long was the coach of the Winnipeg Jets, and he got fired, and Tom Watt took over. And the night Tom Watt took over, I think that was my shutout night. Mm-hmm. And it was a 3-0 game. Brian Hayward was down at the other end. And it was, I wanted people to realize that Barry was a good coach. It was just the team wasn't very good. And so who gets fired? The coach. But
of course,
we shut out the Jets in Winnipeg, and Tiger Williams, who was a teammate of mine, he knew my shutout record. He went out and he cut a big piece of the net. And the crew naturally didn't like that. They'd have to retwine the whole net. And
just like college basketball, Cheech.
Yeah, this was my momentum, was a piece of the net from the Winnipeg Arena.
That's fantastic. So I also did some more digging. Your good friend Dan Murphy, who you worked with for so long, so he pulled some questions out for you. Did you let in a goal as you were watching the replay of another goal you just let in on the big screen?
Well, yeah, we're in Landover, Maryland.
Okay.
And you remember Landover, Maryland?
Yeah.
Washington
Yes, I do.
Played there, the Capitals. And it was the first rink in the NHL that had a jumbotron. Bet you didn't know that. Now you know that. So we're going along, and it's a 2-on-2. And all of a sudden, they throw it across. It's a 2-on-1. And the guy scores, and I couldn't figure out, I'm watching the play, and I'm in net, and the guy scores. So I'm sitting there, and they run the replay on the jumbotron. I'm watching to see how this, and Alan Hangslaben, who was the defenseman, he changed on a 2-on-2. But anyway, I'm watching the replay, and they drop the puck, and Mike Gardner scores from the red line while I'm watching the jumbotron. And Don Blackburn was the coach, and Cheech, come here. So he hooks me. He sits me down on the end of the bench. And he comes down. Okay, now you can watch the rest of the game right from there. Winnipeg Arena. Getting back to the Winnipeg Arena.
Yeah.
You know what it was like. The visiting team where you came off and you had to walk through that crowd sort of area to get out of the rink. You remember down below and the walkway there, and it's all concrete. And so Steve Durbano, we're playing against the Jets in the WHA. Steve Durbano's a teammate of mine, Birmingham Bulls days. He gets thrown out with about 5 minutes left. So he goes, he showers, and we come off and we lose again to the Jets. Jets were good then.
Oh, yeah.
And Gilles Leger, who was the general manager, comes in and he starts yelling, Derby's in trouble, because he had showered and changed and he was walking out. Well, some fan said something to him. So Derby is just hammering on this guy down in the hallway there. And there we are coming out charging with our skates thinking, because he had said Derby's in trouble. And Derby was just, and we're all standing there waiting for a melee. Derby, you better back off.
So he wasn't actually in trouble, to be honest.
No, he wasn't in trouble. The poor fan was in trouble. It was in Winnipeg, too, that Dave Hansen pulled off Bobby Hull's hairpiece there. They got 5 minutes for hair pulling, and he's standing there, and Bobby wasn't wearing a helmet at the time, and Dave grabbed his hair, and Bobby pulled away. And the hairpiece, Dave's standing there with the hairpiece in his hand, and he starts laughing. And then Bobby goes and puts a helmet on, and it was Dave got 5 minutes for hair pulling. Oh.
Did you conduct a post-game interview with a hot dog squished in your pads?
No, it wasn't a post-game interview. It was I'm playing in Quebec, and in the old Colisée, the goalie who wasn't playing sat behind the bench in kind of the tunnel that went to the dressing room. So I'm sitting there. It's the end of the second period, and I said to the trainer, "Okay, things." And it was a 2-1 game. It wasn't like it was a ridiculous game. He comes out and he goes, "You want a hot dog?" And I'm behind the bench. Nobody said, and the game's not on television, so you no chance of getting caught by camera or anything. Oh yeah. So I got a hot dog going for the third period, and I had it in my pads, and I take a bite and then put it back in my pads. Well, Dan Bouchard decides a goal goes in. He decides he's had enough. He's the other goalie. So he just comes skating off, and I'm sitting there, and oh man, I got to go in. And everybody's looking at me because I wasn't expecting to go in. And the hot dog is down my pads. So I got to go out, and I finish the game, and then I'm sitting there, and I'm in the dressing room, and everybody's pissed off because we lost. And I'm trying to act calm and without laughing. I'm trying to be cool, and I have to wait till everybody goes because the hot dog's all squished. And there's mustard and it's on my socks and everything. And the trainer, René Lacasse, was the trainer. He thought it was great. And, man.
In baseball now, when they talk to managers in the dugouts, can that be done in hockey in a different way? Can a backup goaltender contribute? Can a coach talk for an extended period amount of time, or is there just too much going on in hockey that you can't do that?
Yeah. Stoppages in play, commercial breaks and that, you could go and talk to the coach just for a second. And that's what they do now. Mm-hmm. Rinks where, like Montreal, where the backup goalie sits on the other side. San Jose, where the guy sits in the corner. Remember?
Winnipeg does that too, for the visitor.
Yeah, and there's some other, is Winnipeg?
Yeah, Winnipeg's got a goal. The visiting goaltender has to sit right by the crowd in front of the glass, actually, where the team. Yeah.
So you could do that. I don't know whether the backup goalie would want to do that or not, but you could do that. That would be all right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any trouble with that. But you're right, on the bench, there's so much now, and everybody's got a tablet. I'm just waiting for some guy, and I'm almost hoping that some guy takes one right in the chiclets. While they're, I'm looking at the tablet. How did I shoot that one wide? Well, you shot it wide.
There's no analysis for that. There's no analytics for shooting the puck wide.
That one by? Watch the play. You might be up next. Come on.
All right, Lord. Best for last. Best for last, my friend. I'll let you get to the Tampa Sun. Did you once go 3 weeks working as a broadcaster in the playoffs without once issuing cutlery at your meals?
No utensils. Yes, I was working with Chris Cuthbert and Scott Russell was the team, and Dick Irvin was part of it too. Speaking of, there's another one of my 41. But anyway, we're doing the playoffs, And I'm from Vancouver, and I'm doing the playoffs, and I figure, okay, I'm going to go around without utensils, just as a joke, and it's easy for me. Jamie, you traveled with me before.
Finger
Our team
foods.
was you, me, and Roger Millions.
Yep.
There you go.
Finger foods. Manitoba's
Roger,
own Roger Millions.
Roger the Dodger. So his eating habits. But anyway, mine are such that, okay, for breakfast you have toast, coffee, and juice. So no utensils required there. Make sure that they butter the toast before they bring it. Lunch, burgers or whatever. And then dinner, chicken wings or something like that. And so, and it ended up that the first series I did went 7 games. So I couldn't go home. So now we roll over from a 7-game series into another series. So I say, okay, let's keep this going. And sure enough, the next series goes 7 games. So I don't get to go home again. So I say, okay, well, we might as well keep it going. I went 3 series with no utensils. And the guys, it got to be just such a joke. It was, it was crazy.
Well,
let me just see. We'll get back before you get rid of me.
Yeah.
We'll get back to all these Winnipeg guys, and I'm looking at my list of 41. There's Don Whitman, Winnipeg, obviously. Kurt Keelback, Winnipeg, obviously.
Roger Millions.
Peter Young.
Right.
Winnipeg, obviously. Darren Drager was in Winnipeg. No, or was he Edmonton? Drager was Edmonton.
Drager's was Winnipeg too.
Rod Black. Rod did play-by-play hockey for at least 1 game. So I did that with Rod. And I guess that's about it for my Winnipeg connection. Peter Labardius wasn't. No, he's not Winnipeg.
No. He's around the area.
Yeah, he's right there. But other than that, don't. That's it.
Well, 41. Have fun with 41 tomorrow with John Bartlett.
Yes,
enjoy the broadcast. Always good to catch up with you, and thanks for doing this, Cheech. Back on Friday, when the Buffalo Sabres paid a visit to Canada Life Centre, it was our annual Pride Night. Barry Karlenzig from Pride Winnipeg will join us next here on Ground Control.
Morrissey walking right in, slap shot, now Connor shoot, stop, rebound,
Please welcome the President and Chair of Pride Winnipeg Festival, Barry Karlenzig. Barry, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Jamie?
Fantastic. Really appreciate you doing this. Before we get to the meat and potatoes of the interview, let's find out a little bit about you. And just you had, in an email that you had given me, you said you grew up in a house full of Leaf fans. I have no idea how you did that, but how was that struggle growing up with that?
It was definitely challenging. However, I still have fun every year. My brother-in-law is still a huge Leafs fan, so every once in a while when I go to Toronto and see all the Leaf stuff on like 75% clearance, I'll take a photo and send it to him and be like, "Isn't this your team again or something that you're the favorite of?"
That's great for Christmas gifts too at 75% off, is it not?
Oh, exactly. And then every time there's one of the Leaf memes that has something, I'm the first person to send it to him, and he's just like, "It's been years." I said, "Yeah, and you're still like the Leafs." Even my nephew loves the Jets versus the Leafs. So I'm just like, I'm slowly training people year over year.
So it must have been like a little bit annoying when they got past the first round, but then enjoyable again when Florida took them out in the second round. What about yourself? Jets fan growing up and surviving in the house full of Leaf fans?
Jets fan growing up, I still remember as a kid when the old arena was still around. Opa at the time would take us, and it was back in the day, if the Jets scored X amount of points, you got free pancakes from, I think it was a pancake house or something in there. And it's like
amazing.
I still remember being able to, having grown up like my Opa, and then he's 92 now. I think one of the most memorable things was a couple of years ago being able to take him to a Jets game, section 102, right at the ice. At 92, his eyesight's going, his hearing's kind of going, and he never thought in his day he'd ever be at the new arena and that close to the ice.
What a memory that must have been for you, hey?
It's nice because it's that full 360. It's like, you know what, as a young child, he took me out, or my dad would, and then it'd be able to flip it the other way.
That's fantastic. How did you end up in your current position, Barry?
I started with Pride Winnipeg 13 years ago as a volunteer driver. JD Francis from Energy 106 at the time basically was like, "Hey, you work for national car rental. I need some stuff and I need a volunteer. And 13 years later, became the chair of the organization. I've sat in 9 different roles with our organization since I've been with it.
Speak to the relationship between True North and Pride Winnipeg. How well has that been going over the years? I know this is year 5, I believe, of the Pride Night.
It is year 5, and it has been growing. Winnipeg has set the bar across not just Canada, but Canada and the US when it comes to the relationships we have where, at True North Sports and Entertainment really set the bar saying, this is what we want to do. We want to show that sports is equal for everyone and start with hockey. And it has expanded into the different sports in Manitoba and around North America. But really, the Jets have set the bar where you saw things over the year where there was things on the banning of the Pride tape or banning the jerseys. And you've even seen some of the Winnipeg Jets players saying, you know what, I don't care about that. I don't care if I get fined. Equal rights are equal rights. And that's something that truly shows why True North Sports and Entertainment is the best and the Jets are the best.
Oh, is it sometimes where you can say to other people, look at what the Jets are doing, and how often have you found yourself saying, this is what the Jets do, what about you guys?
So we actually just came back 2 weeks ago from an international conference in San Diego that had international prides from around the world there as our yearly conference and annual general meeting. And a few of them were saying, well, this is what our sports team does. This is what our sports team does. And then we could come forward and say, hey, this is what the Jets does. And we really set the bar where a lot of people there were, well, how did this happen? How did you do it? And then Jen, our VP of advocacy, really got a chance to say, like, in 5 years, this is how we built the relationship. We have a very solid relationship with Rainbow Resource Center. And Rainbow Resource Center brought us in with originally You Can Play and really helped solidify that relationship where I look at last year, just before Pride, we had some last minute, the accessible viewing area we were supposed to have fell through. We reached out to True North Sports Entertainment and said, Canada Life Center, can we borrow the second floor so that people with accessibility needs can watch the parade? And they said, yeah, sure, we'll have it done for you in 24 hours. Here you go. And it's that type of relationship we've built.
How often are you in contact with people with True North, Barry?
Me twice a year, Jen, very common. It's as the chair of the board, that's why we have our different vice presidents and our different department heads where I'm there kind of the twice a year with the sponsorship side and just saying, okay, let's talk sponsorship. But when it comes to the advocacy front, Jen really runs that advocacy piece and has done an amazing part, which is why she was one of the individuals that was dropping the puck this past Friday.
Obviously, there's a lot of information booths on the concourse level during Pride Night. How important are those information booths, in your opinion?
They're very important because it shows the community. So when I started with Pride 13 years ago, it was a very small identified community, 35, 40,000 individuals. Recent stats have come out that there's over 100,000 plus individuals that identify as part of the queer community in the province. So when you have that a large amount of a community, you want to make sure to show the next generation that there's education piece. It's not just about a pride, or it's not just about a parade or a festival. Pride is 365 days a year. So it really truly shows those resources and showing that it's not just Pride that's there for the community. There were 7 other community members there too.
Right, absolutely, and expanding all the time. So in your opinion, how did Pride Night go this past Friday against when the Buffalo Sabres were in town?
I think it went absolutely amazing. One of the highlights we heard, and it was a huge shout out to the Jets, was the hoodies this year. So hoodies this year, instead of the silk screen, it actually had the patch in the Pride colors. And there's actually been multiple emails coming to our organization saying, can I get just the patch? Can I buy just the patch? So we've been working with True North Sports and Entertainment and say, hey, we've had a large request of just the patch where people want to just frame it to show their support and their background, saying my hockey team that I've been a fan of my whole life supports my children, my grandchildren, my nieces, nephews, family, friends. It's truly an inclusive sports team.
And do you feel that the sport of hockey is becoming more inclusive, Barry?
I think it definitely is becoming more inclusive. Like I said, I think when I came back out in 2008 till now, it really has become a lot more inclusive. There is still ways to go, and we know that every day we have to be better and better and better for the next generation. But from where it was to what it is today, definitely it's there.
And where do you see Pride Night growing, or in what ways going forward, like next year and the year after that?
I'd love to see Pride Night growing where it grows even more, where it's not just one game, but maybe in the off season, having some conversations with the individual players and really building that, where we do have a huge turnout every year for Pride from the Winnipeg Jets, but also just year-round programming. How can we help the Jets be more inclusive? How can we take what they're doing in Winnipeg and help them promote it across the entire NHL and just say, look, Winnipeg has set the bar. How do we build it better?
Yeah, excellent question, Barry. I really appreciate your time. It's a long time coming in this interview, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That'll do it for this week's edition of Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks to our guests, John and Barry. Enjoy the Jets road trip. You can listen to the games with Mitchell Clinton and Paul Edmonds on 680 CJOB and Power 97. Moose star Brad Lambert will be our guest next week on the next edition of Ground Control. We'll see you then.